In order to interpret Uranus in a house, we take the meaning of Uranus and the meaning of the house in question, and we bring them together. We consider how the drive of Uranus is likely to express itself in the area of life associated with a house. I posted a video on Uranus in the first quadrant. Let's continue with the second. That is houses 4, 5, and 6. Remember, the keywords for Uranus are revolution, disruption, sudden change, individuation, deconditioning, liberation, and activism. Now, let's combine these words with the concepts linked to the fourth house. We have a paradoxical situation when Uranus is in the fourth, and that's because the planet of rootlessness is in the house of your roots. The planet that represents the future is in the zone of the chart that holds your deepest past. Here, Uranus brings an odd energy to the most traditional point in the chart. The books always say this is a rebellious planet, so expect that when Uranus is in the fourth, the native will be a family rebel. This makes all the sense in the world, but over and over again in sessions, I've found that people with this placement don't see themselves as rebels. Calling yourself a rebel requires a certain perspective. Saturn in the fourth may call anything out of the ordinary a rebellion. But in my experience, Uranus in the fourth sees itself not as someone who rebels, just a creative person who exerts free will in a reasonable way because they have every right to. Individuality is taken for granted when Uranus is here. In fact, they're much more likely to genuinely think that the rules don't apply to them. If rules don't apply, if you don't exactly understand the norms, how are you supposed to rebel? With this placement, there tends to be an openness to the family of origin, a low level of structure, or a family comprised in an unusual way. Another thing I've heard reported time and again is a feeling of isolation in the family. Uranus is associated with emotional disconnect, don't forget. So this placement finds it difficult to hook into the parental units on an emotional level. Either the parents are unavailable emotionally, or there's a transient or chaotic lifestyle, or caretakers are just engaged in something else. Most often, the story of Uranus in the fourth includes an absent father, which is in itself disruptive to a family. When it comes to the positive features of this placement, we can start with the native feeling at home anywhere. And they don't actually need to share roots to get a sense of being related to others. But the most positive feature is the strong drive they have to separate from the dysfunction and pathology of their past. It seems that Uranus here has a certain genius when it comes to cutting the ties that bind them to their early conditioning. This person also usually doesn't fit properly into their social, ethnic, or economic background. On a practical level, Uranus in the fourth is likely to create a home with an odd decor. They tend to rearrange things frequently, and they make the home a gathering place for radical and creative people. What happens when Uranus is not just in the fourth house, but at the IC specifically, the lowest angle of the chart? This person experiences substantial ups and downs in the personal sphere. You see, Uranus here needs an enormous amount of autonomy, and the native's strongest desire is to be independent of their roots. The cost is a perpetual sense of being unsettled. Uranus at the IC is linked to the wanderer, the vagabond. There's a lifelong feeling of having been uprooted, and so one of this placement's tasks is to get comfortable with not belonging. The fifth is the house of creation, procreation, and recreation. Here we get to know the self by exploring the creations of the self. When Uranus is in the fifth, the native has a strong impulse to express what's unique and different about their personality, and they may even go through creative extremes. This process can feel electric to them, like lightning, and also be surprising. But one of Uranus's jobs is to bring surprise to any house that it's in. We also have to remember that the fifth house is the pleasure dome of the chart. That's in part because it's associated with recreation, and in part because it's linked to the pleasures of a romantic life. There may even be a holdover from a time when sex was in the fifth instead of the eighth as it is today. When Uranus is in the fifth, the native has a very open mind when it comes to enjoying what life has to offer. This placement loves to follow a passion. However, the autonomy of Uranus is still in play. So they need to know their passion is coming from inside the wild spirit and that it's based in the heart. All they know is that without pleasure and passion, life is hollow. When Uranus is in the fifth, you tend to find a person who sees romantic love as their own little world. The romance they're in is totally and completely different from any other romance. Their partner is unlike any other on earth while it lasts. This brings us to another question. What do we make of the planet of disruption in the house of love? Difficult and troublesome romances are often reported. Things start out looking simple, but end up being complex entanglements. Uranus in the fifth is blindsided by sudden changes in their romantic partners. I've heard over the years many natives say that romance comes and goes unexpectedly. Relationships all but disappear. Suddenly, the connection is disrupted and isolation sets in again. Uranus isn't great with details, so the native may just not notice that they're shutting down or that their partner is drifting. Another factor is that they need so much space in romantic relationships that even when they do notice the drift, they like it a little bit too much and let things drift too far. Going too far is probably the most difficult part of having Uranus here. The fifth house represents the inner child. It's the house of wagering and potential, not maturity and wisdom. This is also the segment dedicated to your own children. One tendency with Uranus in the fifth is unexpected pregnancies. The other is an unconventional or very liberal parenting style. In all, the fifth house tolerates Uranian energy very well, and it's one of the most compatible places for this planet to be. The sixth is the house of your lifestyle. That means your habits and how you maintain your health and daily affairs, including your workaday existence. So, what happens when the planet of disruption and creativity is found here? A couple of things are common with this placement. For one, I found that these natives go through extreme diet and health programs. They look for the ideal way to maintain health, and they often swing between perfection and bad health habits. I say swing because an ideal is attainable, but not sustainable. The planet of advancement can't be the planet of consistency. As for creativity, this placement likes to find innovative ways to take care of daily life. What this looks like exactly depends upon what sign Uranus is in and what planets are feeding it. But the reason they need to innovate on a daily basis is because they're bored by what they see as drudgery. Uranus is too panoramic a planet to be interested in brushing your teeth and putting the trash out on Wednesday night. This is a lifelong struggle for Uranus when it's found in such a mundane section of the chart. The same dynamic tends to pop up when it comes to working life. Uranus here is often drawn to quick and stressful work environments, and you may see a desire for a creative or technological job. But a stable 9 to 5 with a set schedule turns them off, and they can't tolerate some boss with bad ideas giving them orders. Uranus has a natural authority problem. Plus, there's a general distaste for hierarchies. On that point, don't forget, people who serve you are in this house. It's where you find the valet and the hairdresser, the waiter, the maid. Uranus in the sixth hates the idea of a social system in which one person is considered better than another due to some inborn or even earned status. This placement thinks the ethical thing to do is to be nice to the people who are serving you. But we do have a bit of a paradox because this is the house of humble service, and Uranus is associated with rebellion and going your own way. So how does Uranus in the sixth serve? Well, there are a few options. They usually think, for one, that if they clean up their life and their mind, it helps clean up the collective. That's a service. They might also serve by communicating high ideals, especially promoting workers' rights issues. I also see this in the charts of people who are EMTs and firefighters or who work to rescue others. But in general, they seek to serve in a way that preserves their personal freedom needs and their individual views. In other words, this placement tends to be quirky and individualistic in the way they end up serving others. So there you have it. We've been over 3 more placements of Uranus. You can see it's the same planet with the same key features. It actually has the same drive. It's just influenced and shaped by the concerns of the house that it's in. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk, Uranus in the second quadrant. Next is all the ways you can get in touch for a birth chart reading and full astrological services. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Uranus in the third quadrant is next.